Welcome to the Hello Road podcast. Thanks for joining us. On this show, we talk about unique and forgotten cars, memorable travel destinations, our most recent automotive ventures, and other fun things we enjoy. This is episode number 6. My name is Ethan.
I'm Paul.
And today our guest is Brad Hansen. Any relation to Beck Hansen, the musician?
Oh, I wish.
Oh, okay.
But no.
Brad is a director and writer. He's owned 22 cars, one of which I saw at the most recent Ride Road LA show. We probably talk about that a little bit. And someone that knows an awful lot about cars that have appeared on film and television. So today we're going to talk about that. Welcome, Brad.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
This is great.
Nice. So yeah, what have you been up to, guys?
I can go first because I did something really fun. I channeled my inner 17-year-old and I put an exhaust on my Honda Fit.
Okay.
That was pretty cool.
Was it?
Sounds awesome.
Does it really sound awesome?
No, it does. It does. It's a high quality part, so it sounds good. I'm happy with it. It makes all the right sounds. The engine kind of sounded a little buzzy, I guess would be the best way to describe it. But now it doesn't sound as buzzy. Now it sounds deep and mellow, and when I let off the gas, it burbles a little. So it sounds mean, but it's still a Honda Fit. So, and I think
were those VTEC?
Yeah, it is. Then it is a VTEC engine, and when you crack VTEC in it, it does get quite loud. So it's nice. It's fun.
Nice.
So yeah, that was a fun first modification I did to my Honda Fit. I've only had it for about a month, maybe a month and a half. I haven't had it that long, and
you're already messing with it.
I'm already messing with
Okay.
it. Yeah. So I've got plans in my head for the next modification to the Fit. So it should be fun.
Okay. That's so is it a better car now that you did that, you think?
I think so. In all honesty, as funny as it is putting an exhaust on a car at, that my tender age of 37 instead of 17. Actually, it feels, and it's probably a placebo effect, but it feels like the throttle response is slightly better. It feels smoother, and the engine feels a little less, I guess the word I'm going to use to describe it is corked.
Okay.
But it feels good. I mean, I'm happy with it. It's an exhaust by a company called Spoon, who has been a Honda tuner for over 30 years.
Yeah.
Really high quality stuff. I've always admired them from an engineering perspective and just an overall tuner perspective on the race cars that they make and the parts that they produce. And so, yeah, I was super happy to get that and get it installed on my Fit. So,
Do you think this is the first in a series of many upgrades to this car, or where is this going?
Yeah, I think it probably is because there's a lot of things I'd like to do to it, between the, just this with the exhaust, and then a lot more just suspension work. I'm typically a kind of person that admires handling over performance, so that's kind of next in the cards to do. I'd like to get another set or a better set of wheels and tires for it.
Okay.
And then eventually start upgrading the suspension as I get to know the car through autocross and canyon cruising.
Okay.
And canyon driving and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, just want to make it a nice, even nicer car for me to drive day to day, and just something that I'd be really happy with. Because typically what I'm finding is if I get bored with the car, I want to get rid of the car. That happened with my Subaru Outback, and because the initial plan was to get it all, set up to go have fun adventures, but I never did that and got bored with it. So I need to be ahead of the curve on the Fit. So
all right,
that's the plan.
That's good.
Yep.
Not a whole lot going on with me. I'm just still have too many vehicles. Still have too many broken vehicles and trying to get rid of some of them. I have an E38 that I've just decided to give away because I'm sick of looking at it. It's a really nice car. There's a lot of stuff wrong with it, but it's actually probably one of the more reliable vehicles in my fleet.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that car's going up. I had a video on YouTube where I'm trying to give this thing away. So hopefully somebody will be getting that car soon.
Have you had a lot of interesting candidates who
Yes.
came up with reasons why they should be the one who gets the car?
Yes, there have been a few,
Yeah.
and it's going to be hard to choose, I think, because there's a couple people that will actually want to come and road trip the car from LA back to their destination, and there's there's somebody that's their first car is an E46 and they're looking for something else to add to their BMW collection. And there's a bunch of interesting people out there that are interested in taking this car over from me. So we'll see. That's kind of what's been going on with me, just trying to downsize because owning 12 cars is awful. Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah.
I mean, there's some good things about it. I can, drive my truck one day and then drive a BMW the next day and then have the other 10 aren't working. So yeah, maybe there's nothing good about it. So what's any interesting automotive adventures going on with you, Brad?
Yeah, I recently, not too long ago, got a Dale Earnhardt edition, Intimidator edition, Monte Carlo SS, which is a 2004 black supercharged Monte Carlo. The big blobby ones that everyone seems to hate, but were extremely successful in NASCAR. I used to be a big Dale Earnhardt fan. I even painted his car after he won the Daytona 500 on my grandpa's barn.
Yeah,
back in Iowa.
I saw that. That was a pretty nice painting.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was a fun weekend. I saw this a while back when I was looking. The guy was selling it. Didn't care two licks. That was Dale Earnhardt edition. He just
in fact, didn't he took off the Intimidator
Yeah,
logo?
he took off a little Intimidator insignias, and so it just looks like a black Monte Carlo. But I gotta say, I really liked it. I was really thinking about like how great it was until I got home and I tried to go down my extremely steep ramp.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like you have to go so.
It's like a 7-foot overhang on the front and rear of that car.
Yeah. It's got that for the NASCAR for Talladega.
Sure.
Or whatever. I think back in the day.
Downforce.
Yeah. Back in the day, I think actually it was the roof line that had to be the same. And it does have that cool NASCAR look. And
it does. The spoiler on the back for sure. Yeah.
I think people, after driving it a while, it fits me great. I really enjoy it. I think the reason most people were hating on the cars back in the day was because they thought that the Monte Carlo was supposed to be like a sports car, right? But it's not. It's a 2-door sedan.
Yes.
With sporty and quotation marks looks. And if you look at the car like that, it's a great car.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's got tons of space. It's the biggest rear seat I've ever seen in any 2-door by far.
Yeah.
I've been just kind of enjoying that, but I'll be probably putting it on the market pretty soon. Just because getting in and out is such a pain.
Okay. That was something that you didn't quite realize when you made the purchase.
No, I didn't. But it makes me sad too because I've always wanted a C4 Corvette.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be even worse. In fact, most Corvettes I think are going to be a big problem, which makes me really sad.
Yeah. So you're saying before the show, this is your first supercharged vehicle.
It is.
Wow.
Or turbocharged.
Or turbocharged,
vehicle.
okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's the first time with the boost gauge, which is distractingly amusing because when you're using it, and you're seeing this thing spinning, it's usually when you're accelerating really fast, which is the point where you should be paying the least attention to a little tiny boost gauge. You should be paying the most attention to where you're going, right? Yeah. But it's been amusing. So it's been a really fun car.
Nice.
Does it have a supercharger whine? Like I have a lot of experience with the old Mini Coopers. Well, not old, but when they came back to the United States. And so you got that supercharger whine?
None whatsoever. And I got to admit, when I drove it, I was a little disappointed. No, GM actually put special, I think, baffling or something.
Oh.
So it doesn't sound any different than a regular.
That's the most intoxicating thing about a supercharged car when you drive one. That whine you get from basically that's what you hear. And it as annoying as it may sound to like hear that all the time, it's actually very, very. It's fun to hear it because you just know the engine's just making power and it's just super cool. Like that was the biggest draw to those supercharged Mini Coopers, the first generations that came back here in 2002.
Yeah, my wife had one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So then there you go. So you remember hearing it?
Yeah. This gets none of that.
Oh,
but it's okay. It's good slung. It's a good car. Yeah.
We should just we'll put a pulley on it. There we go.
You know
exactly.
what? The redneck version of it. I've seen guys do this. They poke holes in the air intake tubing. And that lets the supercharger
there you go.
come out.
Yeah. I think you should do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's super redneck, though.
Yeah. I mean, who's the audience for this car?
Fair enough. Yeah, you
Well,
got it.
if my memory serves me correct, there was more than just the Intimidator version of the Monte Carlo. Wasn't there a Jeff Gordon version of
There
it as
was
Yeah.
there were several
blue, right?
There were several Dale Earnhardt editions. This was the last of them. This came out in 2004.
Okay.
He died in 2001. There was a 2002 edition. There were a couple special because all the NASCAR guys, they have their own dealerships. So there was a couple special ones there.
Ah.
There was a Jeff Gordon edition, which I think is the coolest because it's blue and it's
Yeah.
got these kind of like blue stripe flames in the front, like his DuPont car had.
Yep.
There's a Tony Stewart edition. There was a Dale Earnhardt Jr. edition, which was like my car but red. So yeah, they made there's a pace car edition. There were a ton of Monte Carlo like special editions.
I recall one of my previous jobs, I worked for a very large automotive used car dealership that, I don't know if I want to say the name on the air, but it starts with a C and ends with an RMAX. But either or, they had a wholesale lot. So anybody that would sell cars would typically go out to the wholesale lot. And there was more often than not, I would see a lot of these Monte Carlos come out there. I saw the Dale Earnhardt edition. I would see the Jeff Gordon edition come out there. I think the Tony Stewart one was orange.
It was black with little orange stripes.
I don't think I've ever seen that one. I knew they made it, but that's
Yeah, I mean, all these cars are rare. We're talking. This one I have is actually one of the more common. They made 4,000 of them.
Okay.
Some of them are like 1,000
Okay.
or less. So if
Yeah.
you haven't seen one, it's okay.
Yeah.
They're not many.
I remember a lot of them had graphics packages on it that, to a collector, if the graphics package is in like pristine condition, almost doubles the value of the car if you're a particular collector of Monte Carlos. But
yeah.
I don't know if that's still the case, but 5-10 years ago when I was seeing all these things come into the CarMax dealership, it was, it's still got the decals on it. It's still got the decals on it. And when the auctions would happen, the cars would go for a lot more because the decals were all intact. So
Okay.
anyways, that's my Monte Carlo
Yeah.
knowledge.
I know nothing about them. So when you were looking for vehicles, were you specifically looking for something that was going to channel your inner redneck, or?
No. If
No.
anything, this woke up my inner.
Oh,
redneck.
woke it up. Okay,
I
great.
found myself buying Budweiser afterwards.
Yes.
Nice.
And talking
Okay.
like this.
Well,
and,
you know,
But
okay.
I used to love NASCAR back in the day. Like
Yeah,
I used to
I watched- I
love
went to a
it
bunch of-
back. And then and then what's weird is I kind of trailed off around like the mid 2000s, and then I didn't really think about it again. And then since I got the car, I've been looking back in research, and it turns out the NASCAR, I wasn't the only one. Like they went down in like 50% popularity in that time period. 50% in like the course of like 10 or 15 years.
I feel like that's when I stopped watching too.
everybody did.
Yeah.
I thought I was the only one, and I'm like,
Yeah.
like everybody did.
Even my wife watched it, and then she stopped watching it too. Yeah, like something happened.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was.
There was lots of things, which is probably
Yeah.
a whole.
Yeah, we'll have to do a whole episode on that.
Another
Okay.
podcast.
NASCAR
But
episode.
I would love to. I'd sign me up. I love. Yeah, I mean, back in the day, it was. I would religiously watch, and then at some point, I just kind of trailed
Yeah.
off. But Dale Earnhardt was always my guy.
Okay.
Definitely took a hit when he passed away.
Sure.
Because he was just so fun to watch. Because he was sort of a. He was like the dude. He was like the John Wayne in NASCAR. He was a legend. He was kind of an asshole, but he was also
Yeah.
kind of like charming at the same
Yep.
time. And he was just always fun to watch, which is what you want
Mm-hmm.
for entertainment.
Totally. So I know you said it's going to go up on the market, but before it does, you have to grow out your Intimidator mustache, right?
I don't have the time. Last time I grew out a mustache, it took a solid like month or two to get anywhere near Intimidator levels.
And just take a pose next to the car, like, and he had those. I remember he had those goggles that were like mirrored, and it was just like total badass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when he passed away too. That was absolutely that was a devastating moment for the racing world and just anybody who was a fan of motorsports in general. But we learned a lot from that. That's basically how we got the Hans device
Yep.
going for pretty much every single series. That was the eye-opening moment right there, which was an unfortunate way for it to happen.
And the safety walls, which all of these things, by the way,
Yes.
Earnhardt was dead set against.
Yeah.
Against.
yeah,
Yes.
old school racer, totally.
I mean, he
Yeah.
didn't even want to. I mean, was he wearing? Did they have full face helmets
He
at that point?
he was the only NASCAR driver to not have a full face helmet. He
Okay.
was the only one who had his face exposed, and I remember there was some crash where I think it was Tony Stewart's car flipped over his car.
Yep.
And there was like the exhaust or some fire coming right into his face, and he had like nasty face burns for a while, and he still wore it on his face. So this guy was such a badass. He didn't even care.
Like not gonna progress.
Yep.
I mean, that's kind of the story of NASCAR. They were still using carburetor.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
It wasn't until recently I think they just upgraded it. They just did the changeover to fuel injection on the cars.
Yeah,
maybe
I haven't
last 10 years or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Them forever.
It's been a long time since I followed any of it as well, but it's kind of cool that a sport like that is able to exist in the world of motorsports where, everything's constantly changing, and that pretty much stayed the same for the longest time.
Yeah.
And then it just finally had to adapt. Now it's what it is, where I'm confused to even watch a race because there's
there's all
breaks
sorts of
and
stuff
sort of things like that I just don't get. But either
chase,
way,
yeah.
The chase, the playoffs. It's like I don't get it. So you have a YouTube channel, or how do we want to say this? You've done some movies about Star Cars.
So there's a web series.
There we go.
Star Cars.
That's a better way to put it.
Yeah,
there we
and
go.
actually, I was really lucky enough to get paid to make this web series. It was my day job to make this web series, which is like, that's incredibly fortunate to be able to do that. I mean, can you imagine if that was your full-time job? I mean, to get paid, how great would that be? You know what I mean?
Don't make videos about KITT and DeLoreans.
Yeah,
awesome.
it was great. It was back when my wife and I were working at this company called Crave Online, which is like a men's pop culture site for like younger dudes, like teenagers, that kind of age range. I was working doing videos, and she was doing social media managing and some other things like that. And kind of how I came across it is that we were at a Doctor Who convention where my wife and I are huge nerds, by the way. And we met a guy named Brian who somehow we got talking, and he's like, "Oh, I have the James Bond Tomorrow Never Dies BMW 7 series, not unlike yours, E38, right? Replica, and he also had a Herbie the Love Bug replica, and I'm like, what? I'm like, wait, what? And then I found out that there's a huge community of people who do this, and I've been a car guy my whole life, but I had never, I never even knew, and this was relatively recently after I had moved to LA, and in LA there's definitely a big pocket of people who are really into it because obviously that's the confluence of car people and movie people, right? There's a lot of people in LA, especially, and I found out there's a lot of men and women who there's this little special niche of car people, and so then we pitched it as, can we do a whole show on them? Because there was no shows about them, there was nothing out there about these people at all. And these are people, by the way, who either found or restored actual screen used vehicles, but most of them were replicas that they would make of some sort. They'd put together and spend years and years and years just because they loved the car, loved the movie or whatever. And we thought it was so cool. And so she was the host. We both produced it. I directed it, was a camera guy, editor, all that stuff. And we ran for 2 seasons. And it was great. Won a couple smaller awards. It was a really good time.
That's awesome.
That's great.
And so ask me anything, because I generally know most of these things about these cars and these people, and why certain cars work in certain movies and all that kind of thing. It kind of spurred on a big passion in me for this whole subject.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, a star car is like the gateway into the automotive hobby. Like my story, for example, my first automotive love was Herbie the Love Bug.
Me too.
It was, I loved it.
How old were you, do you think?
Oh gosh, tiny. I mean, I don't remember, 30 minutes ago, but from what I'm told, I used to sit in front of the TV and watch the bootleg copy that my parents had made by borrowing 2 VCRs over and over again of the Love Bug and then of Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo, because I liked the racing. So
you know what? I'm glad I'm not the only one, because those were the only 2, even as a kid, that I enjoyed. The
other ones were good, but it didn't have the racing. And
it didn't have the racing. Thank you.
That was the best part about it.
Herbie is a race car.
Yes.
It's got the numbers on the side and the racing
Why
stripes.
would it have numbers on the side if it wasn't a race car?
Right, which he only does in 3 movies.
Yeah.
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 Cool.
I didn't,
And how many movies were there? How many Herbie movies were there?
I mean, 4 classic and 1 new, and there was a kind of aborted TV series too.
Okay.
The TV series was pretty, the TV,
no,
movie.
There's a TV movie with Bruce Campbell.
Bruce Campbell.
Bruce Campbell, which was actually not bad for a TV movie.
Okay.
Back in the 90s or whatever. Yeah, so I think there's like 6 movies.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the first one I watched was I actually didn't love The Love Bug, the first movie.
Okay.
Because as a young age, the part where Herbie tries to kill himself
Yes.
was like the most terrifying, upsetting thing for my little, 2 or 3-year-old mind. But Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo is by far my favorite. And,
that's a great movie. I mean, to go back and watch it now in its day, or now in its day, now in present day, it's seeing the cars that are there and just all the effects that were in it were a little cheesy, but at the same time, it was so good and so wholesome. It was just, it really sparked your imagination, or at least it did for me, and I'm sure it did for you.
Absolutely.
As a kid, like, cars have a soul, and I know you've had one of my favorite YouTube videos of yours, Ethan, is that one with your Scion XB about having cars having a soul, and like, it all comes back to Herbie for me.
Yep.
It really does.
Yeah.
So,
who literally had a soul. Yeah.
It's true. Yes.
They do.
Was Herbie technically the first talking car in the movies? Or
first of all, he didn't talk. He would
beep. You're right.
He would beep.
Was he the first alive car?
I guess talking isn't the right way to put it, but
I don't know. I have to really think about that one. I'm not sure. I mean, definitely he was before KITT.
Okay, I'm asking the tough questions.
Yeah,
here
these are
on
tough
the Hello Road
questions,
podcast.
man. Can you start with like easier ones?
I've never thought about that. That could be very well be the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Herbie was like the jumping off point, but I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that maybe their jumping off point into the automotive hobby might have been seeing Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Watching Knight Rider growing up.
Back to the Future for me, for sure.
How old were you when you first saw it? That's like my favorite movie of all time, by the way.
I don't remember. But yeah, just, it's the DeLorean. And that's the only reason why I knew about the DeLorean was from that movie.
So in the way that Herbie Love Bug was for us, was that for you? Was the DeLorean Back to the Future for you? Was that your spark for...
I would say it was one of them for sure. It was one of the ones that got me thinking, oh wow, you can do some pretty rad stuff with vehicles, and that was it was a good story too.
Pretty easy to turn into time machines.
Just time machines.
Plutonium.
Yeah.
To me, in my mind, the DeLorean is the ultimate star car, and the reason is
I would say so too.
Is that not only because it's so just well realized and cool, and it's got the hero's interest of a shot. Where you have that great tracking shot where it's coming down the ramp and it has a nice, dolly around it and everything. It's great. But I think the real reason why it really resonates, that one in particular, is because, and The Love Bug 2 is another couple movies where like the plot of the movie is the car.
Yes.
Which even though there's been thousands of, famous movie and TV cars, very few of them are the plot.
The plot and the main character almost.
Yeah, right. Because if there wasn't the DeLorean, that is the linchpin of the entire plot of that movie. You know what I mean? So it's not just... Because, as cool as, I don't know, Nash Bridges' Barracuda, or whatever, it's just a way for him to get from point A to point B, and maybe there's a car chase here and there, or like whatever.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, that's how 95% of... movie and TV cars are, which is fine, but but those ones like Knight Rider with KITT, where like he's actually a character, or pardon me, the plot itself. That's those are really the ones that stick in your mind.
At least for me at that point, I hadn't seen a DeLorean before that movie.
Same here,
and it was the fact that it was exotic, not too exotic looking, but just a little odd, and. I think that was at least for me, that was one of the reasons why it just kind of stuck in my brain. It's like, oh, wow.
It was those doors.
Yeah.
it was the doors. That's the same thing that happened to me. Like, I saw, I can't even remember the first year I saw Back to the Future. I only saw the third one in the theater, but the other ones were, rented from the video store.
Sure.
Miss video stores. But it was the same thing with me, that hero aspect of the DeLorean. And at the time, I was a bit older when I saw that, so I was already out of my Love Bug phase, and I was just like, oh, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And it was those damn doors.
Yeah.
As soon as they opened, and it was years later that I got to see one up close and in person, and I was so upset that the doors didn't make that sound when they opened
or
up.
that the exhaust doesn't sound like that.
Oh, I know.
They dubbed over like I think was it like a Porsche 928 or something? There's some V8 engine car that they dub over the wheezy DeLorean PRV 130 horsepower.
Yeah, it's not a fast vehicle. It's not a sporty vehicle.
No, yeah.
Have you actually had a chance to? You actually know
Manny, I love DeLoreans. Yeah. That's my somewhat attainable dream car.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I've just been obsessed with the whole story and everything. And in fact, the reason that they picked a DeLorean for that had nothing to do with John DeLorean. The company was
gone,
long gone by the time
it
folded in 1983, and the movie came in 1985. And the only reason they picked a DeLorean was that shot with the doors coming up. If you remember in the movie, he kind of goes back in time. He lands in a barn, and then the little gag where the kid has the comic book with like a spaceship, and he's like, "Looks like some kind of spaceship." And then the doors open, right? Yep. Well, at the time, there were only a couple cars that had those doors. One was the DeLorean, which at that point you could buy for nothing because they were the cocaine cars, right?
Sure.
Or you could buy like I think the
Bricklin or something.
The Bricklin.
The Bricklin.
Okay, you're right. You could have a Bricklin, sure, but I mean,
fiberglass
those
wonder.
were those were a little like rickety,
even uglier.
And then the other cars you can get would have been like a 1955. Mercedes Gullwing, which would have cost ungodly amounts, and so they went with the DeLorean. So that's why they picked the DeLorean. I think that the other reason it works so well is because now we look at Back to the Future as a symbol of like, it's like the ultimate 80s movie because it's all about gotta get back to 1985, 85.
Sure.
And now the DeLorean is kind of a symbol of 80s excess, even though a lot of it was made in the 70s. It came out of the 70s into the 80s.
Sure. It still has the wedge design that was popular in the 70s.
It's definitely more of a 70s car and 80s car, but it's become a symbol of the 80s in ways. And I think that's another reason why it's such a classic.
Sure. Yeah. Because 80s, 80s throwback is huge now. Obviously, Radwood and any new band now is trying to sound like they're from the 80s. So there's plenty of bands that I can't really tell. When was this actually recorded? I'm not really sure. It sounds just like Phil Collins' studio or something.
So yeah, I mean, the DeLorean is itself, to me, you talked about Herbie the Love Bug and how that scene when he tries to commit suicide by going off the Golden Gate Bridge. I have my DeLorean story is kind of similar, and I mentioned I saw Back to the Future 3 in the theater, and that was in 80.
Wait, was that the first one you had seen?
No. I'd seen the other ones, and I remember seeing the promos for Back to the Future Part 3 and getting very excited. How old was I? I was probably 8 years old at the time. And so I remember going to the movies with my dad and my sister to go see the movie, and one of the most crushing cinematic scenes in my existence was that scene when the DeLorean gets hit by the train.
By the train, yes.
Oh my goodness!
I know. You saw that and like, how are they going to recover from this?
You watched the animated movie,
Well, but that was, but at the time that was it, and I was, an 8 or 9 year old kid. I don't remember how old I was at the time. I've never cried in a movie until that point. So I'm 8 or 9 years old, and most people cry when like the dog dies, or whatever the case may be. I was crying because the car died. Maybe I guess I'm a softie for the cars, but at the same time, it's just like, no, the DeLorean's gone, and it just the way it was shot, and it just crumples up into nothing. Oh, I'm still thinking about it right now. I'm starting to tear up. But it's still
and the throwback of the little license plate spinning.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Oh,
yeah, good stuff.
Devastating.
So do you know? Originally, the DeLorean, the time machine, was supposed to be a refrigerator. So
That's
you know
right.
the story behind why they decided to change that?
Yes, because it was just going to be, I think, a refrigerator.
Yeah.
But Universal was concerned that lots of kids would see this movie and then lock themselves in the refrigerator, and then they'd have a lawsuit on their hands.
Yep.
And then I think also that the screenwriters realized that it'd be a lot cooler to be mobile. But I think that making it a car was like the coolest.
Can you imagine how terrible that movie would have been if the time machine was a refrigerator?
It would have been still would have been a good movie. Let's I think the movie would have been really, really good.
Okay.
Would it have been the perfect movie though? No.
Okay.
I mean, the fact that they picked not only a car, but then, the DeLorean, which fits so well.
Sure.
They kind of lucked into, or I know they lucked into it, but that was a really smart creative decision on their part.
Sure. Yeah. definitely.
Totally. I mean, if they had chosen the refrigerator, maybe now there'd be whatever model that refrigerator was that they used would be super popular and everybody would be going after them and like, oh, I got the Back to the Future.
Yeah, it was that gold
refrigerator
from 19.
But I don't know if
the
the movie
1978 Amana.
I think the movie would have been like one of those kind of those 80s cult movies, like I don't know, like Weird Science or something like that, where it's like it's well known and loved, but not the all-encompassing, all-time classic movie that is now. Because if you look back on all of the promotional material at the time, everything was about the DeLorean. The Phil Collins music video had the DeLorean in it. I mean, it was in the poster. It was in. I mean, like that was a linchpin of their marketing campaign. The marketing people were like, "This is cool." The teaser was just the DeLorean, and that was it. I mean, that was their thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thinking about the DeLorean in its time and during when the movies were out, it was, how do I want to put this? It added the element to it that you just didn't really get from the other movies that were out there of the time that were somewhat car movies. Like I think of like maybe Ferris Bueller, like, okay, great movie. It's got that Ferrari. I never remember the name, something California. Okay. Whatever the case may be.
Well, it was a replica technically, but
well, okay. Replica, but at the same time, it
was supposed to be a priceless Ferrari California.
And what year did Ferris Bueller's Day Off come out?
That was 86, 87?
So it was after. So it was
84, somewhere around there.
84 to 86.
Okay, so
we could look this up, but we won't.
We'll assume it was after Back to the Future. So do we think that was a kind of a ploy to like get? Oh, okay. Well, maybe. I mean, I don't even know if that was a Universal film.
Well, no, because I think that cars and movies, they've been linked since the very beginning. You look back to some of the very first movies ever made, and there were car chases, and there were police chases in cars and robberies in cars. Like I think that just for whatever reason, cars work very well in the cinematic medium on TV and in cinema. They're visual. They move.
There's so much wrapped into the symbolism of what a car stands for.
There's a lot you can do with it. It's great for chase scenes. It's great for sex scenes.
And they're shiny.
It's great for you can learn a lot from a character by what car they drive.
Sure.
If the production has thought about that kind of thing.
Yes.
So it's not just an 80s thing. I think that they've always been intricately linked with movies. If ever there was a time where it was really reached the scene, that they would have been like the 70s, because the 70s was all about the car chase movie, and there were hundreds of car chase movies.
Yeah,
they all had the same music too.
Yeah,
the same music was in every single one of them.
Just a quick thing: have you ever seen Junkman?
Yeah, I love Junkman.
Okay,
Junkman's
great.
We
can talk about that later.
Yeah,
but
Junkman's fun.
All right.
DeLorean aside, car chases. So they really can make a movie, or in some cases, break a movie. So
I disagree. Any car chase is like a plus for me. Even a bad one.
Even a bad one?
Even a bad one. I'll buy a movie on Blu-ray or DVD just if it has a car chase. I have Gone in 60 Seconds, a new one, which is a terrible movie, but I like the car chase at the end. So
I really like the new Gone in 60. Well, the 20-year-old Gone in 60.
You should watch it again. You'll be like, oh my Lord.
It's on all the time on like TNT and stuff. And yeah, that whole thing at the end, with Nick Cage jumping the car on the bridge is a little crazy. But
as I mentioned that, as I'm thinking about this, maybe it's not that good.
Yeah, but no, I mean, so car chases in general, like when you come across like there's obviously the famous ones. You have Bullet.
Yep.
Which, in retrospect, I don't know. There's a lot of point of contention on it. Was it good? Was it not good?
Well, I had a 2001 Ford Bullet Mustang edition, another random little edition car I had just because of Bullet. I've probably seen that car chase, I'm not joking, 200 times. Probably.
Okay.
Yep.
It is, I think the reason that movie was considered, that really set the bar. I think one movie has since gone better than Bullet, just one. I'll get to that in a second. Okay. But Bullet was the bar that was set, because you got to keep in mind, before that point, with the exception of like some like Buster Keaton movies where they would do a lot of stuff for real.
Sure.
There was for a long time in Hollywood, from like the late 30s to 68, which is when Bullet came out, movies would have back projection. They would have sped up footage. You know, they would have the actors in front of a really junky looking, you know, green screen.
Yep.
You know, even good movies like any Hitchcock movie. You know, I mean, it doesn't look like
you're not driving
that convertible, or you know, or Sean Connery's driving that convertible in Dr. No or whatever. They just didn't look very real. And
was that due to the limitations of the cameras and technology and actually getting?
Well, it's just a lot easier to do in the same way that nowadays
budget constraints.
Yeah, and budgets constraints. Yeah, it was just a lot easier to, you know, you wouldn't want to have Sean Connery really driving at 100 miles an hour because he wouldn't know how to do that, right? Well, but they had Steve McQueen, who was a car guy and was a race car driver, and or at least an amateur driver at the time. So you had. And you had a director, and the whole point of that movie was just realism, all real locations, no sets.
Yep.
And they just went at it. And we actually, before I sold that car, we went to San Francisco and actually retraced the chase.
Oh, that's awesome!
And holy cow, I mean, look, it looks pretty exciting in the movie, like especially those jumps. But you don't have any clue until you're actually on that street going like, this is really steep.
Yes.
They are really like going 20 miles an hour feels intense, and they were going like, you know, 100. I mean, it's like crazy. So I think the reason that chase worked so well was that was the first one to really show realism. There was no back projection. It was all done for real. There were a couple stunt drivers here and there, but for the most part, it was dedicated towards realism. Not very many sped up shots, mostly done for real, and that really kicked off the whole 70s car chase, you know, thing. And after that, there was like every thriller detective movie had to have a car chase stuck in the middle of the movie somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah. Number one though, as far as car chase goes, is Ronin. Ronin is the one movie I think that's
okay.
And
that's a good one.
2 great car chases.
That's a really good one.
But again, you have John Frankenheimer, a director who was a car guy as well, and he knew cars. He did a great movie called Grand Prix, which is a race movie back in the day. And again, that movie was committed to reality and training the actors how to drive. And I think that movie is probably the best car chase. But it took 30 years though to get to that point. I think, in my opinion, where they could rival Bullet.
Sure. Two of the car chases that really stick out in my mind would be French Connection and Blues Brothers.
Oh, Blues Brothers is terrific.
So that I watched that movie so many times as a kid, and you know, it's just so super cheesy. And there's some parts of the chase where you can actually see the ramps, where the cars are going off of. You know, obviously that was another movie where the car was almost a character in the movie.
Oh, and the car also has a nice little death scene.
Sure, yes.
Elwood Blues takes off his hat and kind of looks at the car. Yeah. That movie spurred me in to get my own ex-police car. I had a it's 2007 police Interceptor.
Okay.
It was all black, and it was probably my favorite car I've ever owned. I actually cried when I sold that car, which doesn't happen very often, but that one was like, But yeah, I mean, that's a terrific. There's a bunch of great car chases in that movie.
Sure.
That are kind of, over the top.
Yeah, there's nothing that can top that mall scene.
It's great.
Looks like the new Oldsmobiles are in early this year.
Yeah, one of the best.
Great.
That's a great car. I have some friends who have one that's just like it. They're really hard to come by now with a real 440 big block in it.
And it seems like a lot of them, well, I've seen a few of the sort of replica Blues Brothers.
The Monaco, 1974 Dodge Monaco.
Yeah, and I've seen a few of those for sale, and they're always very expensive. I'm curious, like, what percentage of those Monacos have been converted? You know, are they like 90% of them are just Blues Brothers?
The ones that are left. I mean, a lot of them, it's rare to find any that are actually the correct. And actually, we can go into this. I mean, like something that this hobby, what I found out really quick when I was, diving into it. And by the way, quick shout out to Nate Truman. He was the guy who, when we were doing the web series Star Cars, that we first got into contact with.
Yeah,
he is the kind of founder and manager of Star Car Central International, which is kind of like the biggest group in LA.
Yeah.
And he organizes lots of charity events and parades. We've been in some where we had our own little Star Car. So he's the guy who really kind of helped us dive into it.
Yeah.
And then through that, we kind of became sort of groupies and kind of part of the group as we went along. But one thing we found out really quick is that there's sort of like different categories of people who have these Star Cars, right? Because there is a commitment or non-commitment to being accurate when it comes to these cars, right?
Yeah, I want to talk about that for sure.
Yeah, so like with those, you can kind of get into, this is what I found, is that you will spend, 90%, if you go for a car that's 90% accurate, right?
Yep.
Let's say I want to make a Ford Explorer Jurassic Park,
Sure.
edition, right? If I want to make one that's going to be, 90% of the way there,
Yep.
you're looking at maybe 10, 12 grand.
Okay.
If I want to make one that's 100% there, I'm spending 40.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that last, yeah, exactly. That's it's that last 10%.
Sure.
You can, if you want to make a bolt and, exact down to every single little detail, it will cost you.
Yeah. So I rented a KITT replica on Turo a few months ago.
That one looked pretty good.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about that one is, I talked to the owner, and there's quite a few things. Like, obviously it's supposed to be a 1982. He had a 1989, and he put a 1982 bumper on it, which was very difficult for him to find. There was a few other things, like I think there were maybe 2 different front ends for that car. There was the season 1 to 2,
they're slightly different with the fog lamps.
Yeah, like how many fog lamps
Yeah.
there are. So I think his interior maybe didn't match the exterior. So if you were a diehard KITT fan, you'd be like, what's going on here?
It's like the season 3 nose with the season 2 interior or whatever.
And then on the interior, he didn't have the correct seats. I forget what they're called, but those are also very difficult to come by.
Yeah.
He didn't also have, there's the overhead dash, which actually makes the car very hard to drive because now you have no rear view mirror.
Yeah.
It's already hard to drive because the
steering wheel.
The steering wheel.
Yeah.
The wheel, quote, wheel
yoke.
it's like the yoke is hitting you in the knees if you're tall. So when I made the video for this, I noticed that the people that were very into the video were either, just fans of the show, and they just loved the fact that the KITT was available to rent, and they just, they just thought it was a great. Actually, when I was filming, I had a couple families that stopped by and wanted to take pictures with the car, which was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Like little kids were like, "Oh, it's KITT! This is awesome!"
Yeah.
But also, I found that there's a whole group of people that want to nitpick the car. And I found it very interesting. Well, that car doesn't have the right seats, and that car doesn't have the right dash, and that car doesn't have the turbo boost. But I'm like, and I understand that there is, there's the level of fanaticism that can happen here. And I'm curious if you've come across that in talking with people that are interested in these things. Like because for me, I was just happy that this car looked like KITT, and it talked, and it was a lot of fun.
It sounds like it was a 90%.
Yeah, it was a 90%, and getting that next 10% is going to take him years to do.
Yeah, and only like a dozen people are gonna know it.
Sure.
Yeah,
and I thought it was interesting that small percentage of, there was just some people that wanted to, like, this car is fun. Let's let it be fun.
This is what I have found, because this is a huge thing, and also anyone, I don't know how many people care about this, but we have friends in the cosplay community. And it's the same exact thing. Same exact thing. You have like
your sunglasses aren't right.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're like this. Your shoelaces aren't the correct shoelace.
Sure.
And I kind of look at that as like as sort of it being more. If you really love something, you've seen it and you know every detail. You know what I mean? Like you've really studied it. You really love that thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, a chance to show that I know this stuff.
Okay.
And then that kind of overrides some people's sense of, I guess, just being polite or whatever. Mm-hmm. It happens. Every single star car owner that I've talked to, except for the couple that have those, 100% accurate
yes,
ones.
exactly.
It's always a thing, they run into, and it's just like whatever. And like the comments for our videos, it's the same thing too. Like a lot of them being like pointing out, "Wow, this thing isn't accurate. This thing." And in fact, in our web series, we would sometimes even ask, like, what isn't accurate, what is.
Sure.
But sometimes you run into, like a good example is the episode we did with the Ghostbusters car. Another really famous, the Ecto 1.
Yep.
And we actually had 2 of them.
Oh, okay.
And one of them, and that was kind of fun because, there's only like, whatever those, they were like, I think they were called Cadillac Mercury Meteor. Like basically it was like, a Cadillac 959.
Yeah.
Eldorado or whatever they were.
Sure.
And they would just, go take it to coach companies.
Oh, yeah.
And so there were only very few left. And I can't remember the exact numbers. It's in the episode of Ghostbusters Star Cars.
Yep.
But I mean, we're talking like only 20 are left of the actual Miller Meteor, with the correct windows, right?
Yep.
And this one of their guys had one. So, because he had the exact right car, that was his goal to make it a nuts and bolts as perfect as it could, right?
Sure.
And everything had to be exactly right. And, it took him years. I think he's still working on it. You know what I mean? Like it takes forever. And then the other guy, he had one that was close. Like it was still a 59 Cadillac and it looked the business, but like the rear window was like slightly different. So at that point, he's like, screw it, I'm just going to have fun. And he has all kinds of crazy lasers and stuff. And he had his car, so it was more about interactive things. Kids could get in and play with the computer that isn't right, but it looks cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like to me, it's just a hobby and there is no right answer. Some people will look at what they can afford. Do they want to just look flashy? It's kind of runs the gamut. And to me, I'm like, especially on the show, we would try to just be positive towards whatever they're doing. Are they enjoying it? Great. That's perfect.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. Like when I was driving the KITT replica or when I was driving the DeLorean, when I rented both of those, it's 100% positive. People are just super excited to see these cars. They don't see them every single day. And I think that's probably one, at least for me, that's one of the reasons why I would want to own a DeLorean, not because it's the best driving or best handling or, it's definitely not those things. But it's just the fact that you can make people smile driving this thing around.
Yeah. And fun story.
And it's also like, you're drawing attention, but you're not drawing attention to yourself. Yes. You're drawing attention to the car. So it's not like this egotistical thing where you're driving an orange McLaren or something like that.
Right. With the top down and be like, here I am. This is actually one of the things that, Nate was telling me, the guy who runs the Star Car Central organization, was that a lot of times when they do shows, when they go to car shows, they ask specifically to be kind of set aside, set somewhere different, so that the star cars are all in one area and all the other classic cars are over here. Okay. And he told me a story once about how like a guy with just a normal classic Mustang, he somehow, there was some mess up in the car show. And he ended up getting parked in between, like, a DeLorean time machine, and an Ecto One, and a Herbie or something like that, right? And his just Mustang was there, and and he was, and Nate was like, "You sure you want to be here? Like, you sure?" And he's like, "Yeah, I don't want to move." And then the guy ended up leaving because he got upset that no one cared about his car. Because if all you want is to be, is just to make people smile and like get a pop and attention, you can't do any better than any of these cars. Yeah. These cars attract so much attention. Every time we were filming, we would have people stopping and laughing and just having a ball, like seeing these things, Yep. Some people would freak out because they didn't even know this car existed in real life. Like the Ninja Turtle fan was one. Yeah. Someone made one, you know what I mean? And people would just freak out. And like, you'll have like classic cars and people will, especially like a Mustang or a Bug or something that people have maybe some memory of, like, especially if they're a certain age, you know, but you don't get quite the pop that you do with any of these star cars. Like they really get attention.
So let's just pretend for a moment that you get an opportunity to recast some of your favorites. Like if you could recast the DeLorean, which is hard. Yeah. Maybe it was too hard of a question. I don't know.
That's a good question.
What would you choose?
Man, I mean, I think that was one of those lightning in the bottles where it's like, it'd be like, trying to recast Michael J. Fox with Eric Stoltz, or, what I mean? Who ended up getting fired. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, I think that car casting sometimes it's just perfect, and they just find the perfect car for the perfect movie. And I can't think of a single car that would be better than that car. Yeah. There's just something that would work. You know? I could sort of see like maybe like a Trans Am working, but it wouldn't be as good. You know what I mean? And in fact, there aren't that many times where if there's any memorable TV or movie car, it's probably memorable because it was good casting. In the same way that like a good character is usually because they had good casting with that character. You know what I mean? Like would James Bond have been as popular if they didn't pick Sean Connery? Probably not. Would Harrison Ford, would Indiana Jones be as popular if it was, Tom Selleck, who they originally had, versus Harrison Ford? Okay. Probably not. You know what I mean? It would have been good. Yeah. Wouldn't have been Harrison Ford good. You know what I mean? So I think that a lot of times they feel it's perfect. And I'm trying to think of any times I've seen a movie where there was a memorable car, but it wasn't the right one. Yeah. And the only one I can think of this is kind of a stretch, but the only one I can think of is the first Fast and Furious movie, where Dominic Toretto, who's played by Vin Diesel, when we first meet him, he has an FD, a little tiny red RX-7.
Yep,
it's red, right? And that doesn't fit his personality at all. That's not the right car casting. And I give him credit because it was just a little B movie, no one really cared, and like whatever. After that, though, because he has the big old beastly Charger, that I think belonged to his dad or something like that. That was his car after that point. And you notice that after that movie and all 6 or 7, that is his car, and that fits his personality better. He's a big, bruiser, beastly dude.
Sure.
He's the battering ram. Dodge Charger.
You know what I mean? Driving a little rotary.
Not a little rotary RX-7. An FD, it doesn't really fit. Yeah. So it's like, I understand that you had to keep the Charger for the end of the movie because of the story, but I kind of wish they would have had like, I don't know, something a little like beastlier, a little more raw, like a Fox body or something.
Yeah,
would have been, you know what I mean? Like something like
that
would have been good because I think that fits his personality a little bit better than a little tiny RX-7. You know what I mean? Like, but in general, I think most companies do really good at like if there's anything memorable, they usually do pretty good on that. But I don't know. Do you have any? What would you do for the DeLorean?
Oh, for the DeLorean? Oh man.
Or can you think of any?
Well, the reason I thought of this was because I mean, whether or not there's truth to this or not, when they were initially coming up with a Love Bug, I think the idea was to have Herbie played by a Fiat 500 or however you say the original name of that car.
Cinquecento or whatever.
There we go. That
I'm gonna leave it to you. You could be right or wrong. We don't know.
But that was the original casting. From what I've heard, was he was supposed to be played by a little Fiat 500, which is, I think, maybe half as fast as a Volkswagen Beetle. It only has a 2-cylinder engine in it, and I think it has a 2-cylinder.
Yeah,
I think so. But it that was the original casting, and then they changed it to a Bug because it was much more, I guess you could say, approachable and everything, and much more recognizable, especially
popular
for
in the States.
Western audiences. Because in Europe that was one thing, but in the United States there was probably 5 of those little Fiat 500s running around versus 500,000 Beetles. So I mean, good choice on their part, right there.
Yeah.
But I mean, to recast the DeLorean, I mean, if it was a modern remake, the only thing I could think of, mostly because of the gull wing doors, would be like, I mean, it's a completely opposite of the performance of the DeLorean, but like, Mercedes SLS AMG, it's got the gull wing doors and it's got that V8 sound. I mean, and it can definitely do 88 miles an hour, but
which the DeLorean's questionable,
right?
There is one movie where similar, they almost had a certain car, but then they went to another iconic car.
What's that?
Goldfinger, which is the first James Bond movie that featured the famous silver DB5, Aston Martin DB5, which I think appeared in 6 or 7 or 8 movies.
Yep.
Over the 50 years, not just Doug Connery.
Yes.
And it was going to be, the filmmakers wanted it to be a Jaguar E-Type. And actually, I think that would have worked.
Yeah,
I think that would have been fine. I obviously, I think the Aston Martin is perfect. But in fact, they had asked Jaguar, like, hey, we're doing this movie. Can we have a couple E-Types? And they're like, nope. So they went to Aston Martin, and can we have a couple Aston Martins? And they're like, yeah, okay, maybe, sure, here's a couple.
Yep.
And then, over time, of course, they became so interlinked that to the point now with Spectre, they made 10 Aston Martin DB10s that literally were only made for the movie, and you can't buy anywhere else.
Yeah.
So that one could have worked. The E-Type would have been okay. I would have been okay with that because it's still that kind of fancy British car. That would have worked all right. But then again, I also love Aston Martin. So
yeah, that's an interesting thing because Aston Martin, I mean, at least in my eyes, is kind of a more prestigious company than Jaguar is.
Yeah, it's more exclusive. For
sure.
Yeah,
and so it's interesting that they said, yeah, sure, let's go ahead and use the Aston Martins for the movie versus Jaguar, which was like, no. So interesting.
Jaguar made a real mistake. I think, honestly.
No, we're not going to let you use them. So James Bond movies.
Yes.
A lot of good cars in those movies.
You know a little bit about this.
I know everything about them.
Okay. Everything about them.
There's not many things in my life I think I could say that with much authority, but yeah.
All right, so we had the Aston Martins in the early Bond films, and then we switched to BMWs.
Yes, and I had one.
You had one. What did you have?
I had a. Were you at the second Redwood? You probably saw it.
I was.
It was the one we had. It was my wife's car technically, but we both drove it. It was the BMW Z3.
Okay.
She drives in Goldeneye. Now, obviously,
it's
we didn't have
turquoise color.
It's like a Atlanta blue, Atlanta Blau.
Thank you.
With a cream interior, 4-cylinder with 5-speed. So it was the exact same spec. It wasn't obviously the movie car because that was a prototype.
Yep.
But it's one that was just like it. And we found it from a dealer who had, again, all the good deals are the people who are selling you have no idea what they are.
Yeah.
They used to put, this is the same color as James Bond. And we were like, oh my God, that's a James Bond car. I don't think they know, So we were able to get that one. It's by the way, the only James Bond car that someone on a budget could afford to buy and own and operate.
Yes.
I say that because the 740i or 750i, pretty cheap to buy, but usually not cheap to keep going.
Yeah. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that they use 740s that they rebadge as 750s. Is that correct?
You are 100% correct. Yes.
Yeah. So I think the 740 is a little bit cheaper to operate, but I could be wrong.
It's way more to operate over time. In fact, our the buddy I said who had the Herbie car, he had one, and he said he put 2,000 to 3,000 every year into his car, but he drove it like every single day. Like that was his.
What's the car with the like the guns that came out of?
Yeah, that's the
one.
Okay. Yeah, it comes out of the sunroof from Tomorrow Never Dies.
And he built that in.
Yeah, he built that, that's a Star Cars episode.
Okay.
Yeah, you can look that up.
I did see that one.
It's got all sorts of fun stuff. They went to BMW. Actually, this is a big misconception that BMW. It's a little Z3 we had, which by the way is one of the lamest Star Cars there is. I mean, it's. Yeah. Hugh gives it to him. It's like, look at all these cool gadgets, got these Stinger missiles and stuff. And then like Bond drives it in the Bahamas for like one scene, and that's it. I remember you don't get to see anything. It was a total tease of a car. They wanted to do more, but there wasn't much time. At the time, the Bond series was dead. 1989, Timothy Dalton wasn't a big hit. The series went into all sorts of rights problems, and the series was effectively done.
Oh, okay.
So 1989, and then GoldenEye in 1985 brought the series back. There's a lot riding on it. Like they were not sure. Like, is this going to work? We want it to work because this is a huge cash cow. Can we bring Bond back? So their biggest concern, the filmmakers, were just like, we don't have a ton of money. It was a relatively not a huge budget. How are we going to get the word out? So they looked at advertising and lots of product placement, right? Now, a lot of things with product placement, you'll have situations, and this is different from movie to movie, right? Where like sometimes you will have companies pay money to have their car in a certain movie.
Yep.
Most of the times it's more of a kind of handshake deal where they'll like give them a couple like the Transformers movies will be like, here, you can have like 50 Camaros.
Sure.
And here you go.
Yep.
They'll just give them the rights, just cars to film. With the GoldenEye one, that was a little weird situation because there was no money that changed hands whatsoever.
Interesting.
It was a completely, it was a you scratch my back, I scratch yours. So what they did at the time was that BMW had this little Z3, which they had a lot riding on it. It was their first little roadster, and the timing was right, and they were like, "Hey, so how about in the movie you get to see James Bond driving this little Z3, and then all the advertisements that we have for the Z3 will advertise GoldenEye in those advertisements." So if you'll notice, all the Z3 ads at the time all were around GoldenEye.
Okay.
And they would say like, new Z3 coming out, see GoldenEye in theaters in October, whatever. So it was kind of a deal where there was no money being placed at all. So a lot of people think like they sold out to BMW. It was really just they helped each other out.
Sure.
And it worked great. They pre-sold every single car for 1 full year. Before the car came out, the entire year's run was gone. Because of the movie. And obviously the car was a success. The movie was a huge success. Bond is back and never really went away ever at that point.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Sometimes
it's awesome hearing these stories. I've never heard it like this because my conception, my perception, should I say, of this whole situation was, BMW said, put this car in the movie, and the studio, of course, said, sure, give me your money. And then it's kind of snowballed from there. And that was you kind of touched on it a little bit, like with the Transformers movies was a great example where it was like, when the movies were announced that they were going to be making, everybody, I mean, I grew up loving the Transformers, and I was expecting to see a Volkswagen Beetle and a Peterbilt Overcab and all the typical, a Lancia. What the hell was Wheeljack? Whatever it was. Right? You would expect to see that, but it turns out every single car was part of the GM family, and it was just like, okay, well, they kind of...
Those are the wrong cars.
Those are the wrong cars. I mean, I guess they fixed it in the newest Bumblebee movie because he's a Beetle now, which is the way it should be, not a Camaro. But so movies like that, the studios and the car companies, was James Bond, the question basically was James Bond, GoldenEye, the opening of the floodgates for movies to be like, hey, this is a good place to market this car, or should I say the car companies, to like start using the actual movie as a rolling advertisement, such as the case of like Transformers.
Sure. Not really, because I mean, a really good example of like, a car marketing, selling out cars would be like Smokey and the Bandit. They sold so many Trans Ams when Smokey and the Bandit came out. And keep in mind, Smokey and the Bandit, I think, was the was it the number 2 movie?
Okay.
Only Star Wars was bigger than it. I mean, it was a huge movie that year. I think it was 77 or was it 78? I can't remember. No. That was like the second one.
The second one? Oh,
something like that, yeah. It was definitely 70. That was one of those car chase 70s, movies. Okay. So I think that what they've done is that as time went on, I think that they got, you would have actual like marketing, cross-promotion, product placement.
Like a department.
Yeah, they would have a department who just does that, which didn't really exist up to a certain point.
Well, and that's a big thing now for sure. I mean, it's not just cars; it's all sorts of things.
Everything.
Computers, and I remember watching Seinfeld and that Mac in the background. I was like, that's not there by an accident,
Right. Yeah. But but one thing going back to the Bond thing is that I thought it was really funny at the time because people were freaking out like, Bond has a German car, what? Because at the time, he only had Lotuses and Aston Martins, and that was kind of his thing, British cars, right?
Yeah.
But they completely ignore the fact that his gun is a Walther PPK, which is a German gun. Yeah. So it's like, it doesn't bug me at all. You know what I mean? Like, whatever works,
Sure.
And he had BMWs for 3 movies, GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, which was the 7 series, and he had the Z8.
Yep.
Which again was a pre-production car in World's Not Enough. And then he went back to Aston Martin. He's been Aston Martin ever since.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so much history with all those cars and all the movies, all the James Bond movies. One that really stands out to me is my favorite Bond car, and I don't know, tell me your thoughts on it, and you're going to have to remind me what movie it was because I forget. I remember the car. The Toyota 2000 GT that was made into a convertible.
That was You Only Live Twice, and it's the only movie where James Bond does not drive a car in the entire movie.
The entire movie?
He rides in that car.
Okay.
But it's the only Bond movie where he does not drive a car. A little bit of trivia.
And they had to cut the top off it because
there's like a shootout type chase that they had with that particular car. Yeah.
I mean, it's a car that's now, Toyota's technically first sports car.
Beautiful car.
Obscenely expensive.
Now,
in the day.
Let's just hack off this roof. No big deal.
But I mean, at that time though, the Bond movies were the most popular thing in town.
Sure. It was worthy of them hacking up a very expensive Toyota, because I think they were, in its day, $15,000.
Yeah, they were expensive cars even then.
Yeah, very expensive car. Now, these things are coming up for, I think one sold for $1 million once, and then
are they at that point?
Yeah,
now?
It's at that point. But there was only,
how many did they make?
I think very few.
2,000, right?
No, I would say it's about. I want to, and I'm probably going to be wrong. Everybody's going to be fact checking, but that's fine. Correct me, please. I want to say it's less than 50.
Wow, really?
It's very few of those cars were made.
And
I want to say the 30s was actually the number.
Well, we can always look this up, and then I'll edit the podcast later and make you sound correct.
Ooh, there we go.
It's like less than 400.
Less than. Why did Ethan's voice sound like Paul? But that's okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. The Z3. I remember seeing that, and I've always had a soft spot for that car.
You know what? I have a soft spot for cars like the Monte Carlo that people tend to hate on.
Yeah.
I found, because usually I think you can find something positive in every car.
Oh yeah.
Every car. Even, you know what I mean? Like even a Yugo.
I think both of us can speak to that.
Totally. Yeah. And really, I think the only reason people get upset or whatever is because they look at a car expecting something that it's not.
Yeah.
And if you go and look at the time, a Z3 compared to like a Miata was like there was really no comparison anyway. The Z3 was a little bit bigger, was more comfortable. I've had a Miata too, actually. So the BMW was much better at like long distance cruising. It was better geared for highway driving. It had a little more space.
Yeah.
But as far as like the driving enjoyment, no, Miata's better. Reliability, Miata's way better.
Yep.
At the time, I don't know why you would pay 50% more for the BMW beyond the fact that it looks amazing.
Yeah,
or
it's a
the fact that
good-looking
you're
car.
like, I don't want to be in a Miata because it's a girl's car and I'm insecure or something like that. But it was for driving around LA with Top Down. It was great. I loved that car. It was fun.
Yeah, and nowadays those are getting pretty cheap.
Oh, they're
they're probably also
they've been cheap
apart.
for a long time. But you can find really nice low mileage examples, and that color combo is not terribly hard to find because it was it was a popular color combo to find it in.
Okay, so for all of our listeners that want to be in a really budget oriented star car,
that's one of the better ones you can do.
Okay,
yep. Not many people are going to be like, oh yeah, Goldeneye, but
I don't think. Maybe 4 people. I mean, you'll be the person in LA like, oh yeah,
yeah. We did not get many people who were like freaking out about like, oh my gosh, the car from Goldeneye, and the way you would like.
Why does that Miata have a BMW badge on the front?
But it's okay. It's just a fun car to have a fun car.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. So which one of Ethan's cars in his fine collection should go ahead and get itself an agent to become the next star car, the next big one?
There are actual companies that will rent out cars.
Sure.
And you should.
I should probably
You absolutely
pimp them out.
Yeah. In LA, there are a couple car casting companies that you can sign up for.
Yep.
And they can call you, but you do have to usually be there with your car.
Yeah.
And whatever. It might not be worth it, but I don't know. If there's a car you don't care about, whatever, it's like
here, take it. That's fine. Most of them. Okay.
Gosh, but of those cars, I think that the one that has the most character is the Stanza wagon.
Yeah.
I think that one is like, because if you think about the kind of character who would have that, right?
Yeah.
I'm imagining like, there's a lot of like 80s movies and TV shows being out there like Stranger Things.
Yep.
I can imagine like, a college professor having like a
Stanza
or
wagon.
something. You know what I mean? Like, or I don't know. I just feel like there's a, like that kind of car. I think that'd be the one that would.
When it's interesting too to think about like who that car was sort of marketed to. It's the design is practicality. So this would be a perfect, like a college professor would be perfect, or something like that. Yeah. If anywhere the character kind of matches up with somebody that doesn't care about how a car looks.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I think that one is a really good one as far as like, it says a lot about the person driving it, even to someone. This is the important point. Even to someone who isn't in the cars. Because you have a great collection of cars, but to be fair, I think a lot of them only, nerds like us would look at and be like, oh my God, that's a Nova twin cam.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Whereas, if you just had that, if you had a character in like Stranger Things drove from one of those, you would just be like, oh,
that's
little
an
black,
old boxy
little
car.
black car, like all the other ones, right? Yep. Whereas the Stanza has that kind of super tall greenhouse, right? Yep. And those weird proportions that kind of give it a certain character. It would fit, someone who wears like a bow tie or something. I don't know. Vacuum salesman. I don't know. Like, there's got to be some cool character for like a Stanza. And it's one I don't think I've seen before. I don't think anyone's used that before. Close like I think of there's a character in Breaking Bad that had like a Toyota Tercel wagon.
Yes.
There's a Tercel wagon,
Tercel wagon, the 4-wheel drive one.
That's a close thing I think about. So, I think that there's probably some space out there for someone to, have a Stanza.
Yeah, that's a good call.
They're supposed to be bringing back.
Correct answer.
They're supposed to be bringing back Breaking Bad, so maybe this is the big opportunity for the Stanza wagon. This is the replacement for the Corolla wagon.
Tercel, the
Tercel wagon. I'm sorry.
Yeah. The Corolla wagon. That's another good one. They made a 4-wheel drive Corolla all track.
Yeah, Toyota did a lot of really cool stuff.
That's on my list of cars that I would like to own one day. Yes.
Ah, cool.
Ford track Corolla.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we think the Stanza wagon, that's going to be the one that's going to get the call.
I think so. I was going to say maybe the is it the Grand Prix? What is it? The Pontiac
Turbo Grand Prix.
Turbo Grand Prix, but I think that
McLaren Turbo.
I think it's a little too rough. I think with the paint kind of peeling, it would be. Although actually, maybe that would be good though too. I can imagine like that would be a character like some guy who's like stuck in his past and he just can't get over. You remember? It was the uncle in like Napoleon Dynamite?
Yeah.
You had like the 70s van and was
yeah.
like reliving his 70s days.
Yes.
Like if they made Napoleon Dynamite now,
Yeah, a Grand Prix.
a
Turbo
Grand Prix would be perfect.
Yep.
You know, and like that
'Cause
was like his
it's
high
like-
school car, and he's
Sure.
kept it since then.
Exactly. And
You
it's
know?
not a Trans Am or a Firebird. It wasn't,
Yeah.
wasn't that cool. It was just, it was a Grand Prix.
Yeah, because I think that's a car
Yeah.
that a non-car person would look at and be like, "Oh, that's kind of
Yeah.
what is that?"
I kind of remember those, maybe.
yeah, it's kind of just has a neat look to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So between those two, I
Okay.
think you're good.
All
You
right.
have to fix the brakes though.
Yeah.
You don't want talent driving that. You know.
No, that would be bad. Oh, jeez. Yeah.
So of all the star cars that are out there, I mean, and there's hundreds and hundreds of them, and I'm sure you know every single one of them. Which one of those best fits your personality? Is it really the Back to the Future DeLorean, or is there another one that's maybe obscure that people haven't really heard of?
Do you mean if
you were the car.
If I was the car,
If you were the car.
If you were the car.
Okay, wow,
Oh,
that
you were
was
the
a
car.
way.
This
Okay,
is-
that
this
was
is
the weirder
deep.
interpretation of the question. I hope you didn't mean.
Deep dive.
Okay,
Deep dive right now.
I thought you were asking what car would I want, and in which case it would be the Ford Explorer Jurassic Park car, because that was my movie that I've seen. That was my Star Wars. That was a movie I saw hundreds and hundreds of times.
Yeah.
And I had it on VHS, and I think I was 10. Came out, and I would watch it incessantly.
What's your favorite line from that movie?
Oh, dude! Like every line is great.
But there's got to be one.
I'll think of one as you guys are talking, and for the next one, I'll
Okay.
think of one. I'll just randomly blurt it out like inappropriately. Okay.
Okay, good, because I have my favorite line that I say all the time. Just
Let's hear it.
Where's the goat?
Nice,
The
excellent.
best one.
Oh, but gosh, if I was a star car, oh god, that's tough, man. Why don't you guys answer one of those? I can't think of one. That's a real
That's
deep.
a tough question.
That's a real deep question. I don't know what to say about that one.
I know what I'd be.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I mean, I'd have to be Herbie the Love Bug. I mean,
Yeah.
that car made the personality of me that's sitting here right now is pretty much thankful to that little silly Volkswagen.
But do you feel like that you share similar personality traits with that little Volkswagen?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think I do.
Well, that's great.
I do. And the desire to, I guess, to win and to, how do you want to say this in the best way possible? I don't know. It comes
Clever girl.
Clever girl.
There we go. That was it.
I mean, it comes down to the racing aspect with it for me. I've always loved racing, and I've always loved silly cars that shouldn't be racing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
hence why I own a Daihatsu and own a Honda Fit. It's just like, it's not supposed to be there. So
Yeah.
it kind of,
The underdog.
the underdog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Find ways to use cars inappropriately.
That's the best way to do
Yeah.
it. The best way to put it is to,
Yeah.
is to find ways to use cars inappropriately. So that's it right there for me.
Well, is it in that specifically?
And it's round, and I'm kind of round, so it works.
And using cars inappropriately, do you find that's fun because there's like no pressure? Like you're not expected to do great? Like, like for example, if you take a, I don't know, like a Hummer on a drag strip, right? You're not expected to run well.
No.
So therefore there's no pressure and you just
Right.
have fun. Like, is that what you mean by that? Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of nice. It's like set the expectations very low, and
Right.
and that way, when you do very well, it's like, oh wow, this was capable.
That's how I win.
Yeah. You know what?
I may have not won the race, but I may
Yeah.
have won the race in my.
Yeah, but you had some fun.
I had to go off-roading with our when we were shooting Star Car Season 2. That's when
Okay.
we had the Interceptor, which was the best filming vehicle you could ever have, by the way.
Because
Ethan,
they don't
if you're
die.
doing what's that?
Because they don't. You can beat the crap out of them.
Well, there's that, but they also have the world's biggest trunk, so you can fit in endless amounts of gear and people.
yes.
And the
Yeah.
fact that if you're shooting and you don't have a permit for where you're shooting, and you have a black police car sitting
It
there,
looks like you have a
Ooh.
it
permit.
looks like you have a permit that you're shooting
Tricks
there.
of the trade.
I
And
know.
on top of that, you got your
Right.
little spotlights on the
I'm
side,
gonna write
right?
this down.
And on top
Writing
of
this
that, you
down.
got your bull bar in the front, which we use as a camera mount.
Wow. These
And
are
on
all
to-
very good tips.
And on top of that, they will just never die. And it's
Yeah.
just the whole thing was like the perfect vehicle for that. But anyways, we had to actually go off-road. We did a Jurassic Park episode where we had some off-road vehicles. They weren't, the Jeep, there was a Jeep and that was like nuts and bolts accurate. That was like perfect. And then there was a Ford Explorer that was a completely custom off-road rig. it really didn't look right at all, but it was
Okay.
so cool as an off-road rig, like whatever. And we really went into this off-road trail. And, you know, the guy who had the Explorer, the hardcore off-roader was like, I'm going to take you to this great trail. It's going to be awesome. We're going to go. And, you know, we're in our, you know, we can't just put everything in those cars. Like we need
Sure.
all our gear and all of our stuff and all our people that we're filming.
Yep.
And, you know, this trail that we're going is getting worse and worse and worse. And, you know, and the car did great. Because if you think about it, if you had to take a car and go off-road, that car, you know, it's a police interceptor, right? So it has the underskid plating.
Yep.
Actually, it's got a live rear axle, so it presses into the thing. It did pretty good.
Yeah. When I did the Gambler 500, there were quite a few ex-cop car Panther platform cars. And they all did pretty damn well. I mean, like, wow.
Yeah,
I need
they're
to buy
solid.
a Jeep. I'm gonna get a Crown Vic.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll come out of the deep dive where I ask you what you think you are.
Yeah,
and
that,
we'll go to
was,
something,
that was deep.
Yeah,
What
that's
kind
deep.
You know, the future podcast.
Psychology.
Next
If
time,
I
next
was
time,
a car,
next
what
time.
would I be? That would
Next
be hard just to do if you were a car. What would you be?
Yeah, I
Much
have
less a
no
star
idea.
car. Yeah.
We'll have you on again, and we'll answer it
We'll
then.
give you some time to think.
I'll give you some
about
time to
this.
think.
Yeah.
So here's another one. This is something that, you know, at least for me, I think about it like this. So you have star cars, and you think about star cars, you think of your KITTs, your DeLoreans, your Love Bugs.
Yeah.
What about some of the more outlandish stuff? What are
Yeah.
you? Where are your thoughts on that? So, like, I'm talking like George Barris's Batmobile,
Yeah.
like the Munsters mobile,
Corvette Summer.
Corvette Summer,
God.
right-hand drive,
Thing
chain
is
drive.
just not good looking.
Right. So
Yeah.
where are you on those?
Oh, I think they're amazing. I think
Amazing,
that
okay.
yeah, I mean, in the same way that you have certain you know, like the George Barris Batmobile would be way out of place in, like, you know, the Christian Bale Batman movies.
Yeah.
But-
Although
right? But for that show and, you know, that movie,
That
it
time.
was absolutely
Yeah.
perfect. It perfectly fit. You know, I think it's like any part of a movie, right? It's like, does it fit the movie? And usually, you know, the memorable ones really do. And so the outlandish ones, I haven't seen Corvette Summer, I have to say. That's one of the few star car
Okay.
movies I have not seen.
all right.
So I can't speak to that one, but those more outlandish ones, you know, if it fits the movie, I'm all for it. Like the Wraith.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, or even, you know, honestly, even the other Batmobiles that they had in like the 90s,
Yep,
you know,
sure.
I think those
That's
were
what I
all
remember,
great.
yeah.
Even the ones that everyone hates from the Schumacher movies, I think they're amazing because they fit that movie.
Yep.
You know, the person designing the car had to look at what's the whole movie. Oh, it's a big crazy movie with bat nipples and bat butts and whatever. Yeah, the car's gonna look crazy.
Yep.
And they made it crazy. So great. You know, I think it's great when they go like really, really go to town.
The vast majority of people out there that aren't car people but are movie people, and they see something like that, that's a way to get more recognition for, you know, the car. It's like, oh yeah, that's the Batmobile. They'll see it on the thing. I mean, as somebody like me, I think about, like, when I go to Target or whatever, and I go, first thing I usually do is go to the Hot Wheels. 90% of them are like somewhat fantasy cars and stuff, where I'm
Yeah.
always looking for, you know, the Acura NSX or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
The case may be, you know, because I've never been extraordinarily drawn to those things, and it, to me at least, it's not a turnoff with a movie, but if it's being marketed as like a car movie and it's kind of a silly car,
Sure.
I don't know. That's just one of those things with me.
Is there an example of like a?
Well, like, I guess you could say, like, I don't really want to use the Batmobile as an example because that was kind of a outlandish movie, I guess. But
Yes,
because
I mean, man.
somebody
The
who's
man is a bat.
man is a bat. But what would be a good example of something like this? I mean, well, here, let me avoid that question and go to the opposite end of it and say things like Mad Max. Like,
Yeah.
that's so bitchin',
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a car movie, but it's not a car movie because it's just all, you know, epic wasteland and a bunch of, you know, cool things, especially the latest one, which was, I loved that movie.
Oh,
But-
me too.
so good, but I'm trying to think, like, things that, I mean, even the DeLorean, I guess, would be outlandish, but if I was to, when I was into that car, I wasn't into it for the Back to the Future aspect. Like, if I was to own one, I was like, what does it look like stock
Yeah,
without the things on the
exactly.
back?
Sure.
And that's what drew me to the car.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe to the other, you know, vast majority of people, they're like, oh, why does your DeLorean not have the Mr. Fusion on the back and have everything else?
Yeah, there's a lot of just an aside, a lot of DeLorean owners hate all the Back to the Future questions they get. The guys who don't have the time machine conversions, who just have a regular DeLorean, they get sick. A lot, not all of them, but some of them get sick of everyone being, where's the flux capacitor? Does that thing hit 88 miles an hour? You know, all that stuff.
It's like seeing a celebrity, though. It's like, you know, for a lot of people, it's, you know, that's all they know. Yeah. I'd say for the majority of the people on this planet, they know of the DeLorean because of that movie.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who don't even know a DeLorean is a real car.
Sure.
A lot of them. They just think it's like, oh, it's like a weird movie prop thing that they made for the movie.
Right.
They don't even know that there was a real DeLorean, you know, or how it would look without all that stuff.
I mean, aside from going to Radwood shows, in my everyday life, I've probably only seen like 3 DeLoreans outside of like a car show, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like if you're not an enthusiast,
yeah,
you're not going to see these things.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that with the car culture in general around star cars, you have people that just know it for what it is, like, you know, the George Barris Batmobile. You know, I keep going back to George Barris. I don't know what it is with me and Mr. Barris. But, you know, it's those outlandish cars that I think, you know, to some, maybe it's a gateway thing into the car hobby and the car culture. Maybe they grew up not, we'll go back far to, like, you know, we'll talk about the first Batman, you know, the Adam West series, and maybe they weren't into cars, but it's because of that Batmobile that they flipped and they got into cars, right? I mean, it transcends, like, regardless of it being a Ferrari California replica that I can't remember, or being the George Barris Batmobile, you know, that is movies, you know, film, television series, they all can contribute to the gateway into becoming a car enthusiast.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, because I think people, and the reason why I think a lot of people will freak out more seeing a star car versus just a really nice classic enthusiast car is because there's a personal connection. With a like, let's say a 1955 300 SL Gullwing or whatever, you know what I mean? Like some really amazing car, right? You know, an enthusiast might see one and be like, wow, really cool. But they don't have any particular personal memories of that car. You know what I mean? Whereas, you know, if you're like near you, Paul, you know, they grew up watching Herbie. So when Herbie is like a friend of theirs, it was in their house on their TV. They have an intimate relationship with that car and lots of childhood memories. Maybe they have the toy, or, you know what I mean? Like, there's all these intimate things that they have where you don't get with even, like, you know, ooh, that's a Bugatti EB 110.
Yeah.
You know, just really, really cool. But you don't really have that intimate emotional connection like you do, you know, with the star car, the famous car you grew up with, like that. And yeah, it can really fire up those memories and nostalgia like nothing else.
Yeah.
And I think part of it too is that, you know, with those more outlandish cars, I think a lot of people grow up and the only cars they know is, you know, what their parents have and their friends have. Yeah. And 90% of people just have boring, you know, boxes or minivans or whatever. Nothing that would, you know, fire a kid's imagination. So to them, it's just a car is just a conveyance of just a boring thing that around, right? Whereas, and then they watch, let's say, Batman back in the day. Like, oh, a car can be that, you know? It kind of expands their imagination of what a car can be and what a car can do and the kind of adventures it can take you on. And it can be like a good springboard for enthusiasts for cars.
That's a way better way to answer the question that I very poorly worded, but there we go. That works. Very good. Very good.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty good place to land on right there.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna let you have the final word there. That was, I don't think we could have ended it better than that.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So on the show, we do a little thing that we're gonna rename it because another place calls it the same thing we were. So we'll rename it to something new, but basically it's just...
We were calling it Car Spotting. We got to come up with another name because Jalopnik was using that. Damn them.
Thanks.
We did. I mean, we probably knew that somehow.
I know all the writers there are probably listening to the show and they're going to, throw down copyright on us. So, thank you. So yeah.
Come up with a different name. We saw some cars this week. What did we see? That's what we'll call it.
Yeah. A very long.
It's a very succinct title.
We saw some cars this week. What did you see?
Yeah.
Go. That's the new name for the segment.
I think that's it. Yeah.
There we go.
I was at home most of this week, so I probably should not be the one that kicks off this segment.
Oh, okay.
I think it might have to be Brad or Paul that kicks off this segment right here.
All right. I'll go ahead and start. Interesting week. And this all happened on Sunday.
Okay.
I was driving around with my 19-month-old daughter, getting her to fall asleep in the car. And
I've done that a few times.
Yeah.
All the time.
It's one of my favorite things to do on the weekends, and it really is.
Yep.
But I don't know what it was. I guess it was just, I think I do. It was a nice day. It was a very nice day. And it felt like Supercar Sunday in and around my neighborhood. Well, not neighborhood, but the couple cities surrounding my city where I was driving around. So I saw a ton of really cool supercars, and I'm not even exaggerating when I'm talking like Carrera GT, McLaren 720, Lamborghini,
Where do you live?
Huracan. Yeah, this is all good stuff, but that's not what I want to talk about. What I saw.
Okay, all right.
I saw something that's a bit more relatable to our interests. And, a bit later in the day, I was on the freeway. I don't know where I was going, and I saw a Mexican market Nissan Micra. Be still my heart. The Micra is not sold here in the United States. It's actually.
Do they sell it in Canada too?
They do.
They do.
They actually have a racing series for these things in Canada. The Nissan Micra Cup.
I think I need to
That's
figure
such
out
a
a way
great name
to do
for a
that.
series, the Micra Cup.
It's the smallest cup ever.
It's the smallest.
I hope the cup is like literally like
it's a very
thimble.
small
It's
cup.
a
You win at the
thimble,
end of the
yes.
series. It's a cool little car. It's a little tiny subcompact.
Yeah.
Nissan does not sell them in the United States because they feel
shame.
shame
It's not
because
considered a K car, right?
it is not a K car.
It's
No,
bigger than a K car.
It's bigger than a
Is
K
it
car.
Is it about the size of a Mazda 2 or a little bit smaller?
It's a little bit smaller than a Mazda
Okay.
2.
right.
For example, I guess if you're going to put it into a car that is sold here that's about its size, it would be like the Chevy Spark.
Got it.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
subcompact, I guess you could say. So,
Yeah.
but Nissan already has the Versa here, and it's already like the cheapest car you can buy in
Sure.
America, I think, is how they market that car. So, I'm assuming that's the reason they don't sell them here, but I did see one driving on the freeway. It did have Baja California plates on it, but
Nice.
I'm starting to see more and more of them floating around. People come up here all the time from Baja California to visit, or they have family up here. So I'll see them, and it's always great to see them. I think it's a great looking car, and it honestly would have been in contention for, a car for me to be driving on a daily basis had they sold the car here, because it's a total Paul car.
Yes.
Little scrappy hatchback 5-door that can't get out of its own way. So yeah, bunch of cool supercars, Carrera GT and stuff. Yeah, whatever. Nissan Micra. That's what I
That's
saw.
what we want to hear about.
Yeah, that's.
So I saw two cars. One was on the way here, but one
Okay.
was I was visiting a friend, and of course we went into a very Hollywood and Highland, the most tourist trap where we all stay away from. But
Yes,
if you're in a
don't
town,
go there.
You gotta go. But if you've never been to town,
Never been there. You got to bring your family and friends
so,
there.
Yeah.
Of
So
course.
anyway,
See the Hollywood sign, that kind of thing. Yada, yada.
which we did. We did
Okay.
too. And I came across here. I'll show you a photo. You can post this later if you
Okay.
want. But basically, there were these two guys in C7 Corvettes, and
Okay.
they were just going around the block a couple times.
Yeah.
One of them had this insane paint wrap where it was like this bizarre chrome illusion.
Yeah, it's like
Yellow,
green and yellow or
green,
purple, or depending on
Insane.
how you
I
look
mean,
at
it
it.
really grabbed your eye. And then his buddy, just a regular white C7.
Boring. Okay.
And all they would do is they would just roll around. They would stop. They would, rev the engines, blah, 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 and then they would sit there for a little bit, and then they would drive around.
Okay.
This is all they did. For
Okay.
like an hour. I don't know what they were doing. I think they were either
I think they were letting people know that their right foot works. And it's like, hey, check this out. My foot is operational.
I had two theories. One was they're
Okay.
just like cruising for chicks, which
Yeah,
I don't know how effective that would
At
be.
Hollywood and Highland? Yeah.
That seems weird.
Yeah.
Two, probably the most likely scenario, because I saw they had Instagram handles on the side, was
They
were
want
just
photos.
photos?
Yeah.
But why?
Photos and followers.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Like and follow.
Did anybody hop out of the car after they were done and like with their hat, like looking for money, like to get a photo, like the fat Batmans and Spider-Mans do over there?
That would be interesting for their C7 Corvette, which they've probably spent $40,000 a month on. But the other car that I want to tell Ethan about, because I like encouraging bad habits. Is
okay,
a car
you do
that
know
I
that I have 12 cars.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay,
but you'll like this one a lot. It was no joke on my way here.
All right,
your place.
Yep.
The sign
about 3 blocks away.
It's
a Rolls Royce.
Ooh.
1985-ish. I think it's a Silver Seraph.
Silver Seraph.
Which is, just a typical, typical square, very square, very 80s. I think it was black. I mean, I kind of drove past it. I didn't like stop and look at it. I figured you would because it's so close. Yeah. Anyways.
You have to tell me exactly where this is located.
If you want.
Right after this podcast, I'm going to go buy it.
But one thing I found with those is that every time I look for used cars, man, they're coming down. They're like, you can find them. They're kind of within the reach of a common man. They're the cheapest Rolls Royces I think you could buy. Is those kind of late 80s, early 90s.
I believe I saw one for like $5,500 on Facebook Marketplace.
It would have
recently.
been I think I did too, and that was a pile.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
But you could probably get one now that will relatively get you around relatively okay for like 10 grand for like a Rolls Royce.
I might be wrong, but for some of that generation, the 80s Rollses, didn't they use GM transmissions? So I think the LS swaps are kind of popular. Not popular. I don't know if they're popular for a Rolls Royce, but at least it's possible.
Yeah, so
possibly necessary too.
I would.
But in general, if you think about it, I keep on thinking like someday I'll find one and I'll get one because they're not. This is before they had air suspensions, before they had anything. They had very simple stuff. I think they might have still had Lucas Electrics, which is a problem, I'm sure.
Yep.
But in general, I'd be less scared to have a Rolls Royce from that era than one that was made 10 years ago.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, as far as, like, how complex they are, it was still just a basic, just well-made car, but to me,
you probably still kind of understand how everything is operating.
Right. Yeah. And maybe fix some of it, it's not too crazy. But those have always been appealed to me because they were all about just the craftsmanship.
Yeah.
It wasn't about how much technology can we shove into these cars. Just how well built can we make it? How good can the leather be? How thick can the carpeting be made? And how nicely can the wood look and all that stuff? So you might want to check that one out.
Okay. Yes. I mean, might be something I'll have to replace the Fifth Avenue with. Let's see.
Oh, it's
Go from the finest faux luxury to the finest actual luxury.
See, I've always wanted a Rolls Royce just because how often in life do we as mere mortals ever get the best of something? You know what I mean? Like how often do you get, like, I have the best suit or the best meal or the best house, like to have the absolute pinnacle of whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
And now you can get there with Rolls Royces. It might not be the best Rolls Royce, but you can get a Rolls Royce now for like
it was the best
grand.
at one point.
The best at one point.
Yeah,
that was probably the most expensive luxury car. It was the most expensive luxury car you could buy.
Yeah.
That's
okay. That's a good one.
And it looked sharp from me just driving past.
All right, you are an enabler.
We have a road trip coming up, so that might not be a bad idea.
It might not be a bad idea. And Rolls Royce never go together. Yeah. Oh, they always go together, don't they? Yes,
they do.
Yes.
In luxury, shall arrive. Well, cool. So some good car spotting between Brad
Can't
and
call
I.
it that anymore.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we got
copyright.
What cars we saw this week?
What cars we saw this week on the way to Ethan's
How about just
house?
the cars we saw?
The cars we saw.
Which kind of sounds like a soap opera.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I like
this
that.
time
Young and the Restless.
The cars we saw.
This week.
The slow and the unrepairable. That's my collection.
There we go.
Yes.
Cool. So saw some cool cars, different ends of the spectrum, Rolls Royce, Nissan Micra, but that's the way we roll here. Upcoming events. We have
Radwood Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.
We're going to that.
We are.
You guys are going?
Yep.
We'll be there.
You might go there with the.
No, we can't.
We might go there.
We can't make it.
Okay.
Wait, what are you guys bringing?
Rolls Royce, apparently.
Yeah, dude. That's the thing. It's a rad car too.
I do like buying cars the day before events. I did that twice, so I might have to do it again.
I mean, to me, there's no greater pleasure than having a used car that's just a few blocks away because I hate driving long distances and then seeing it and being like, this is a pile.
Yeah.
Even if you buy it, then you got to drive it that long, stressful drive home.
You're trying to convince me to buy this.
It's just like 3 blocks, so you could push it home if it fails.
Oh boy, yeah. So it might be very interesting. So it's going to go well. No matter what, it'll be interesting. It's going to be a great event.
I'm sorry. What are you really bringing? If not the Rolls Royce,
I think we're probably going to be driving the Paul's Honda Fit.
Yeah,
we're not.
You're not going to be in the show.
No, I am actually Brad Brownell and I own a 944 Turbo together.
You co-own the Turbo?
Yes.
I remember he mentioned that someone co-owned it. I didn't realize
that's
it was you.
me. I haven't driven the car yet, other than that one rally we did like 5 months ago.
So your
I'm gonna hopefully
own car will be there.
Yes, and I'm hopefully gonna pick that up and be able to drive that home, and then I'll let it sit for another 5 months in my lot of crappy cars. So.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's the idea. They unless we come up with some others.
Yeah, and then you caravan back.
Yeah.
You have a reliable car in the Porsche.
Yeah, so I'll get a tow truck.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wonder if the Fit could tow the 944.
The answer is probably no.
I mean, it's possible.
All that extra power with that new sweet exhaust.
Yeah.
So we have that. This weekend is the Long Beach Grand Prix. I'm unfortunately not going to be able to make it this year. I've made it a habit to go every year for the last good few years, but great event coming up for any listener that wants to get out there and watch some really cool racing at the shoreline over there in Long Beach. It's a ton of fun. You got IndyCar racing. You have the IMSA, whatever they call it. The WeatherTech
Challenge or something series. Yeah. We don't know.
We don't know. So it used to be ALMS, and it'll always be ALMS in my heart. And also that newly renamed, it used to be Pirelli World Challenge, the Blanc Pond Challenge. I think it's the challenge. So that's all going on out there this weekend in Long Beach. Really, really cool event. Go check it out. Radwood was there this past weekend. They had a booth set up for Formula D, so you missed that. But they were there, so that was this past weekend, the Formula D event out there. So yeah, definitely cool things coming up. There's more stuff up in the pipeline. I think there's a couple other Radwood shows coming up, but we'll talk to those as we get closer to the event. All right. Well, so on that, Brad, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Coming into the show for us or with us. That was great. Great guest. You're welcome back.
Awesome.
And now the other thing I wanted to say is we're only going to have guests named Brad.
Yeah.
Right.
This episode, his name is Brad number 2.
Yes, exactly. So any other Brads out there that want to be on the show, we can come up with a few other people named Brad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some random guy off the street.
Yeah.
Hey, what's your name, Brad?
Perfect.
You want to be on a podcast? So, yeah, no. Thanks again for coming in. That was awesome.
A lot of fun.
Where could people find you on Instagram, Facebook,
they could follow
MySpace?
me on. If they're interested about the actual show, even though we're not, we don't work at Crave Online. In fact, they rebranded to Mandatory is now what the site is called. But you can still, if you just type in Star Cars YouTube, you'll see. I think we have like 12 or 14 episodes. They're all up there, available for free to watch. And as for me personally, you can find me at Brad Hansen Media. I'm always writing and doing stuff with cars, going to car shows. I actually did a feature called Driver's Ed Mutiny, which you can get on Amazon, which features a 1988 Volvo 740 wagon.
Ooh.
In a very starring role. So you can check that out. And yeah.
What about you, Paul?
What about me? You can find me at Instagram at Charade Life. That's Charade_life. And at Twitter, if you want me to just like your tweets, because that's all I do on there, at Slow Paul.
Nice. Yeah, you can find me at youtube.com/HelloRoad and at Mr. Ethan Tufts on Instagram and Twitter.
Oh, you started the Hello Road Facebook group.
Yes. That one's been a lot of fun. I just started this a couple days ago. There's a Hello Road Facebook group. It's all about...
What's it called?
Hello Road Adventures in Unique Cars.
Yeah. It's a really cool... that's really been cool. Like, there's been a lot of people adding to that really quickly.
It's been
a
a
neat
lot
little
of fun.
community. It's just like sprouted up.
I know. It's like,
it's been
ooh,
really cool,
it's a little
man.
flower.
Yeah, it's been really neat.
Yeah, so it's basically kind of a similar idea to what we're doing with the podcast and what I'm doing with the YouTube channel. It's just, try to find ways that we can be inspired to take our unique cars on more adventures, road trips, go camping, go off-roading, that kind of thing. Really just a place for people to talk about the stories behind their cars, the memories they might have had of a car of them growing up. And just a good place to post pictures and post road trip photos and just to get inspired to like get out there and get off your ass and go take a road trip or go camping or go. And I've seen a bunch of pictures already of people posting locations. I'm like, oh man, I really have to go there.
I know, right? Oh, well, there's a bumblebee.
Yes.
There was a G1 bumblebee that I had no idea. It's within spitting distance of us too.
Yeah.
That some guy had made in his lawn.
Yep.
Or something like a massive full size bumblebee.
Yes.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all cars are any car, right?
I mean, any car. I mean, I'd say, it's any car that you're enthusiastic about.
Yeah.
So there's no limit on what types. Obviously you can post a picture of your new Prius if you want, but I think, probably be a little bit more interested in a car that you haven't seen. Maybe people haven't seen in a long time, or just a car that you have a good story about.
Yeah.
So, or in a car that kind of makes you want to get out there and actually drive. We should not be afraid to drive our old cars and just not let them sit in a garage and actually get out there and have some fun with it. So that's kind of the idea of the Facebook group. If you just search for Hello Road Adventures and Unique Cars on Facebook, you'll find it. And then come and join and join our little growing little community that we got.
It's a really
there.
positive little place too, which I've been enjoying.
Yeah,
seeing all the positivity.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been great.
Thanks for reminding me. There's a lot of stuff going on. Like, that big thing that I just did this week. I forgot about that.
Cool. So
all right.
With that, thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Have a good night.
All right. Bye.